Good afternoon, folks. I'm Megan Shamus. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at the FIDO Alliance. Welcome to our masterclass on optimizing UX for Passkeys. We've been teasing this for a little bit on some of our sessions for the last couple of days, but today we released our UX guidelines for sign-ins with Passkeys, and we're really thrilled to have this great lineup of speakers with us here today. They have either really facilitated and contributed to the research and or are implementing Passkeys and have their own UX perspectives to share as well. So we have a really great, what happened? Oh, I didn't.
I have it.
That's not nice. I'm like, it's moving. So the way that we're going to run this session today is we're really happy to have Kevin Goldman, who's the Chief Experience Officer at Trusona, as well as Sierre Wolfkostin, who is the Senior Product Designer at Duo Security, which is a part of Cisco. They're going to do a presentation on the UX guidelines, and then after that, we're going to have a little bit of a panel discussion and some reactions to some of our UX research, like the interviews that we did. It's actually going to be really cool. So we have Christian Brand here with us, who's a product manager of identity and security at Google. We have Cam, how do I pronounce your last name? Champeau, who is with Sony PlayStation. He's a product manager. And we also have Niharika, who's a senior product designer at Intuit. So we're going to get started with the presentation from Kevin and Sierre, and then we'll move into the panel. So let me have Kevin and Sierre take it away.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Identiverse, for having us. Let's start with this, optimizing UX for Passkeys. So when new security experiences are coming to market, if they're not usable, if they're not really optimized around the user experience, people will find ways to work around those security experiences, which ends up just weakening the security and wastes a lot of time and money. But when the UX for Passkeys is optimized, we have seen, and this is part of what the research covers, we've really seen adoption be wonderful. And people will actually use the Passkeys as a brand new experience. Most people haven't heard of a Passkey. When you present it to them in the right way, they absolutely will adopt and use it. Now, that helps the security, but when we optimize UX for Passkeys, Passkeys can become a business enabler also. So I'll say that again. When we optimize the UX, we're still on this, for Passkeys, the Passkeys can become a business enabler. So I'm going to share a couple stats that Christian's here from Google. It's okay, you can look at your phone. Google released some wonderful stats just a few weeks ago, and they're stats from 100 million authentication events using Passkeys just last month. And it's fascinating to look at that data. So, of course, with that implementation, there's lots of optimization that was done around the UX for Passkeys. And what they found was that first try sign-in success was quadruple that of passwords. Yeah, quadruple. Yes. And first time, the time it takes to sign in was slashed in half. So quadruple the amount of success and the time it takes to sign in slashed in half. So you put these together, that creates just more engagement with the brand. You get all the security benefits, but you're getting all these other benefits of Passkeys as well. And it can really lead to top-line increase in revenue. That's how it becomes that business enabler. We're hearing from brands that they're correlating this increase in UX to actually increase in revenue from a better authentication experience. So I just wanted to go through that because why do we want to optimize the Passkey user experience? It's because of this. Increase adoption of phishing-resistant authentication. You can get 4x the first try sign-in success, and you can cut the time to sign in half. And this actually turns Passkeys into a business enabler as well as a better security mechanism. So, before we go anywhere with the guidelines, we want to make it clear that this presentation, the next 45 minutes or so, we cannot communicate everything that's in the guidelines. We want you to go here. This presentation that the 5 of us are presenting today is not a replacement for just going here. So scan the QR code. If you're listening on demand in the weeks and months to come, it's at fidoalliance.org/UX-guidelines. And there's several things you can get. One is get the guidelines. You can view it in HTML, you can download a PDF, and you can also register for a webinar. And it's actually a webinar series. We're starting this in just a few weeks on June 13th, and we'll have 3 webinars back-to-back each Tuesday, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. You can register for those webinars here. Again, go here, get the guidelines. The whole point of this is going there. That's why we're showing, and we'll show this QR code a few times throughout the presentation. There's 5 of us up here. We all worked on this, but there was actually a lot more people that worked on this, so it's important that you know where these guidelines come from, just so you see the diverse team that worked on them. So the FIDO Alliance UX Working Group is comprised of 77 people from 32 companies. If you really want to look and read real quick, you can read all the companies there. And I really wish we could actually thank every single 77 people, but if you squint, they're all listed there as well. And it was also important to the FIDO Alliance to have another party involved, and that was an independent third-party UX research firm, and that company was called Blink. So they have an army of PhD cognitive psychologists that run this kind of UX research. We needed to do that to ensure that the research was unbiased and that we could trust the findings of this research. So all these people contributed to the guidelines that we're going to go through today. Last point, hiring Blink costs FIDO Alliance money. FIDO Alliance is a nonprofit organization, so there's 4 FIDO Alliance member companies that stepped up and helped to underwrite those costs. And those companies are 1Password, Google, Trusona, and US Bank. So if you look real close, I'm going to highlight Sierre's name there in green and pass it over to her to go through the approach.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. All right, so let's talk a bit about the approach that we took as a UX working group to arrive at the UX guidelines that you're getting a preview of today. I'd say on principle, our approach was highly observational. So we started by observing audits of well-known passkey deployments. We observed during a series of interviews with brands that had successfully deployed passkeys, along with platform providers that support them. Through all those interactions, we started building a lot of empathy. And then after the empathize stage, we moved on to our design stage. Here, the UX working group, we split into pods, and then we diverged far and wide, and we explored a lot of different ways of representing passkeys in the user experience. After that, we converged back together and converged on a series of clickable prototypes, along with a live reference website. And then from there, we moved on to the testing phase. Now, for this phase, with the help of the third-party research firm, we recruited a slew of target end users, and we asked these users to complete a series of account-related tasks. So think of tasks like creating your account, signing in with your account, managing your account. And in all of these tasks that we asked users to complete, it naturally brought them into encounters with passkeys. And so here, it was very valuable to then observe moments of friction, moments of delight, moments of understanding. Now, it's important to note, we went through this whole process not just once, but 4 different times. So that's 4 cycles of design, testing, and learning that went into the guidelines that we're previewing today. Now, I want to double-click for a sec on testing and talk a little bit more about our testing scope. So when we started out, we considered the entire journey that someone would have having an account at a given organization. Everything from creating that account to signing in with the account, managing the account thereafter. And we looked all along that user journey looking for potential touch points that involved passkeys. Now, in total, we found 50 different touch points that could potentially involve a passkey. Of those 50, we chose to focus our research on 18. And of those 18, 9 of the most impactful touch points ended up making it into our tests and also our official guidelines. Now, when I say 9 touch points, the first 2 that I'm mentioning have to do with creating an account with a passkey on iOS and Android, respectively. The next 2 touch points involve creating a passkey not at the moment of account creation, but rather on the settings page. So same action, different location. The next touch point that we included was any communication involving disabling of passkeys after they were already created. Beyond that, the next 2 touch points involved creating a passkey with iOS and Android during that crucial moment of account reset, which usually happens after someone has forgotten their password. And then finally, the last 2 touch points that made it into our testing scope, as well as the guidelines, are the points that are experienced the most often, which is where someone signs in with a passkey on the same device for which it was created. So, same account sign-in. Those are the last 2 touch points that we included in our testing scope and guidelines. Now, a couple other notes. First, through the third-party research firm, we found 26 US consumers. These people came from varying backgrounds, varying ages. Some of them even had visual impairments. So we did have a pretty diverse group to test with. All of these people used fairly modern operating systems. So latest versions of iOS, latest versions of Android. And then finally, because we wanted our research to be broadly applicable, we chose to focus on a common use case to start, an e-commerce use case. So that's why in a moment when we show you prototypes and demos, you're going to be seeing the test site taking the form of a website called Digital Biz. That is just referencing the e-commerce use case that we used to start out with. So I know that was a lot of information about our approach, about our testing scope, and that approach that we took in our research. And now we can finally get to the good stuff.
All right, the good stuff. Let's see a demo. So what you're going to see, we're going to go through a demo, and there's 4 different journeys in there. Sierra and I are going to talk through the journeys, each of the 4. But within each 4, we're actually going to look at real users experiencing passkeys for the very first time. All right, ready? Let's go. Account creation with the passkey. So here we are at Digital Biz. There's a user that likes Digital Biz and wants to create an account. So they input their email address, and very clearly here they see that they're about to create an account. It's unmistakable. When they do, they're directly put into the Passkey OS dialog boxes to create a passkey. When that passkey is created, it's very clear that their account is created and they're given information on what sign-in methods they have. If they choose, they can go to their account settings, they can see their sign-in methods, and they can actually see the passkey here. They can also get some great, simple information about passkeys. Here's a real user experiencing
an account using that email address is there, so I would hit create your account. And then I would I probably would put in my own password. I think it's saying create a passkey. I'm not sure if that's the same as create in my own password. Here's my email address is there. I'd hit continue. Fingerprint, I like that. That's simple. So I would do that if I was able to. And confirm. Now I have my account set up.
Next, signing in with a passkey. To sign in with a passkey, it is as simple as following the instructions in your OS sheets. And then just like that, you are signed in to your Digital Biz account. Now let's look at a real person experiencing that flow.
So I'm going to sign in. It's going to say, yeah, this is, by the way, what pops up when I do on Chrome as well, something similar. Log into you with your saved passkey. I don't think I ever created a passkey. I used a password, but I'm going to, on, click on it and see. Oh, I didn't create a password. It's still Passkeys. So I'm going to choose continue with Face ID, and I am logged in.
All right, next one, create a passkey from account settings. So this one's a little different. There's a user that's had an account for maybe years, and they use username and password to sign in, and so they're going to sign in with username and password. Now, somewhere along the line, Digital Biz might have told them, hey, go check out your account settings, make sure everything's up to date, or they might just have other reasons to be in their account. And the key is here, when they get to their account, they see this. This is what we're calling the passkey hero. It has a clear headline, very clear affordances, symbols, and a very clear call to action to create a passkey. When they do, they're brought into the system sheet, they can create that passkey, and when they're done with the system sheets, they very clearly see it was successful. They can view the passkey if they want, and they can very clearly see what their sign-in options are. Here they're taking a look at the passkey itself, getting more information about what passkeys are because they're new, and they can see the option to disable passkeys if they choose. So as soon as we sign out here, we'll see a real user experiencing this for the very first time.
So a passkey, you don't need to remember complex passwords. I don't think that I have seen this particular terminology with any other account that I've had. So I would be, or maybe it's just a different way of wording something, because I'm looking here and it looks like that might be a fingerprint that you could possibly use, or that might be maybe facial recognition. So I would be interested.
Finally, let's look at creating a passkey after account recovery. So in this situation, a user wants to sign in to Digital Biz, only they are unable to do so because they have forgotten their password. So hence, the user clicks on Forgot Password and starts the account recovery flow. That involves confirming their account by going and logging into their email account to then follow the instructions and click on a link to start that account recovery process. Now, importantly, once that link in the email is clicked, a user now has the option to create a passkey in lieu of creating a password for the primary means of logging into their account. So if a user wanted to continue with the default option, they would just hit that yellow button, Continue, and then follow the instructions in all of the passkey creation dialogues to then successfully create their passkey. All of this, of course, would be showing up in their security settings page. Here they could scroll down to view that passkey that they've just added to their account. So now I want to rewind this entire scenario. We're going to go back closer to the beginning because I want to highlight another alternative route that a user could have taken. So in this case, same old thing, user is confirming their account, they're getting those instructions in their email address. Now, the moment that I want to highlight comes up here. Here, it's super important that we give users the option to create a password if they choose to. So if they don't want to create a passkey, if they don't want to follow that default option, they can still create a new password to access their account. Now, even after this, we can still nudge for the creation of passkeys. A user can opt to follow that hero image's text and be able to create a passkey following all of those OS sheets. Now, a user technically has two ways of accessing their newly recovered account, and they can see both of these methods side by side in the account settings page. They can see both the passkey and also their password. So now, in a moment, let's go ahead and take a look as a real user experiences that part of the flow.
So you can use either of these things to sign in, which is helpful. If you have gloves and you don't want to take them off to do your fingerprint scan. So that's good. And then you can disable it as well, which I guess you might want to. I don't know.
All right, hopefully that's interesting to watch real users using passkeys for the very first time. You saw people in there, that one gentleman, he didn't know he didn't think he created the passkey, but he did, but then he didn't, but he's like, this is all good. It works. That's somebody who only heard of a passkey a few minutes prior. ever. And people, if you handle these experiences in the right way, people will adopt Passkeys. All right, let's get into the guidelines a little bit. Again, we'll show the QR code, and you want to get the guidelines there, but we're going to go through a few so you get a sense of what's in the guidelines. And they're organized like this. There are 10 relatively simple UX principles. So they're really just one-liners with a few sentences that describe the principle. There's also 3 content principles. We had a lot of content strategists from different companies work on this. A lot of the work to get this UX right is content. It's the words that we choose and how we communicate these new concepts to people. So the content principles are really important. And then, of course, we have 4 user journeys where we go like really darn deep. And you'll see that in the guidelines. It goes step by step methodically, tells you what the evidence was from the research that led to the choices that we made in the design. So let's just go into 2. I'll cover 1, and then Sierre will cover 1. Let's look at one of the 10 UX principles, and that is prompt to create passkeys alongside account-related tasks, such as account creation, in account settings, and third, during account recovery. And what we want to do here is, you saw the demos, but I just want to slow this down a little bit and just look at it in an abstract sense. So we'll just go through each one of these as sort of a UX diagram. If I'm creating an account, never had an account with Digital Biz, with the RP, I enter my email. It's really important that we confirm, we make it very clear that you're about to create an account before you put them into the passkey dialogues. The reason for that is a lot of people are very used to the pattern of enter my email address, enter a password because you're creating an account, and enter the password again. Those are the triggers that people think about when they're thinking about I'm creating an account. So we almost have to overemphasize that you're creating an account with a passkey because we remove the password. So that step right there is very important. But after you make that step, then you can go into this blue dot, which is representing the Passkey OS sheets. And just so you know what we're referencing by this blue dot, those are these dialogues with Android and iOS. Now there's 2 outcomes here. The happy path is that people come to these sheets and they click continue, which creates the passkey. When they do that, their account's created and they created the passkey. But they can choose to not create a passkey, so you have to work through that user experience too. In the case of Digital Biz, they used email OTPs, but each RP is going to handle that other path a little bit differently based on their security policy. And this is riddled throughout the guidelines. The guidelines didn't prescribe any specific recovery accounts or these other fallback options because we know they're going to be unique to each relying party, each brand. The second journey is account settings. So again, this is somebody who already has username and password, they're in their account, and this blue triangle, or not triangle, rectangle, represents the passkey hero that we looked at. So just to jog our memory, that's this thing. This is used a lot. I can't tell you how many iterations this went through to try to arrive at the right messaging. Tremendous help from the Google research team and content strategy team to come up with the right messaging here that worked for people. So if you're there and you click the yellow button, then you'll go into the OS dialog boxes where you can create a passkey. If you do, your passkey's created. Now, once you have a passkey created, there's also this, which is you see your passkey, but you also can disable your passkey. So if you choose to disable your passkey, then of course we would have a success message after that, and you need to be really clear with users how they're going to sign in if they disable their passkey. There's other guidelines around that disabling, so again, when you go into the guidelines, it'll make sense there. And then the last flow here is account recovery. Sierre talked through this one just a few minutes ago. We know each RP is going to go through a different kind of identity proofing depending on their security policy. So again, we didn't prescribe that, but we'll just generally call it identity proofing. When you're done with that identity proofing, and before you allow a user to create a new password, we want to prompt for the choice to either finish creating that new password or, again, that blue rectangle, we want to show the passkey hero as the default option, as Sierre said. If they choose to create the passkey, they get the OS dialog boxes, and then if they complete those, they created their passkey. But the other path is, hey, I started with password reset, and darn it, I want to finish password reset. We try to nudge people very hard towards passkeys, and it backfires. People want to finish a process that they started, allow them to finish, and an amazing thing happens. They get here, they create their new password, then prompt them for a passkey. They were way more receptive in cases like this to then create a passkey. When they do, they go through the OS dialog boxes and the passkey's created. That's just one of the 10 UX guidelines. Let's go to Sierre will cover one of the journeys.
Right. And the journey that we're going to cover and spotlight here is this journey of account creation. So 3 main goals to keep in mind when it comes to creating an account once passkeys are in the picture. First, we want to create new accounts with passkeys as opposed to passwords. That means showing passkeys as the default option as opposed to on the same level as those traditional passwords. Secondly, although we want passkeys to be the default, we still do need to respect user control and freedom and thus give fallback authentication options, especially if they're available. And then finally, throughout all of this, we overall want to be decreasing the account creation time and increasing that chance of task success. So said another way, we want to ensure that this is a fast and successful account creation experience. So now let's walk through step by step what those pages would look like in that journey. So imagine a user finds Digital Biz online, loves those pink headphones so much they want to create an account and get that discount advertised in the front of the website. So to do this, the user would click sign in or create an account. What follows here is the traditional step of entering in your email address. Upon continuing, the user finds that because Digital Biz didn't pull any records for that email address, that they're now being offered the official option to go ahead and create their account. Now, this is the first key moment I want to stress here. Because we want passkeys to be the default option, notice we directly start those OS dialogues the moment that a user starts to create their account. So now creating an account is as simple as continuing to follow the instructions in those OS sheets, and then just like that, a user has created their account and also created a passkey while doing so. Now, at this point, I want to highlight another key moment throughout this experience, and that's the moment that we just saw, the moment of success at the very end. Beyond that moment, another one that I want to highlight is this moment of OS cancellation, which you can see here in the middle of the flow. Again, to respect user control and freedom, we do want to give them the option to continue with a fallback option if they should choose to cancel out of that passkey prompt and creations. So in this case, if a user were to click cancel, we would be able to show a fallback option, which in this case is the option to click a link sent to their email address. And then from there, we can make sure that our third goal is still maintained. We can make sure that the user has an easy and fast way to go ahead and create their account. So that was a bit about the journey for account creation. At this point, we have seen one of our UX guidelines, one of our main user journeys, and due to time, we've shown you just these 2, but as Kevin said earlier, we want you to be able to get all of the guidelines and all of the journeys. And now the way to do that is just to scan this QR code. It takes you directly to the FIDOalliance.org website. Here you can see all of the guidelines, as well as get a link to register for our webinar series, which is taking place this June. And each of those webinars is going to go into a deep dive into all of the guidelines that you've seen thus far, along with all the ones that are still on the website now. Leave that up there for a minute because I see people taking pictures. Perfect. All right. So now I think we're ready for the next part of our session, which is our panel.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Sierre. Megan already introduced everybody, so we'll launch right into the panel, but we're taking a little bit of twist on the panel. So instead of Sierre and I asking questions, we're going to play a clip of a real user using Passkey, and then we'll ask the panel to respond to that, observing that user using a passkey. So let's dive right in.
Back, read address, page 7, skip for now, add a passkey.
So let's
Link.
add a passkey.
All right.
Add a passkey.
Double tap.
Dynamic island, empty. Sign in. Dynamic, sign in, close, button. Do you want to save a passkey for ADW1? Ask, continue. Continue. Do you want to save a passkey for ADW1? Passkeys are saved in your iCloud keychain and are available for sign-in on all your devices. Continue.
All right. So our first panel topic is about accessibility. Cam, who is responsible for the accessibility of passkeys?
Well, I think the role of accessibility doesn't fall on just one relying party or the passkey providers or even the operating systems. It's really the role of all three. Each of them play a critical role in making passkeys accessible. Ultimately, the goal is that passkeys will be replacing passwords, and in order to do that, we need to make it so all of our users are able to utilize passkeys. As you can see in this presentation and through other passkey presentations, we love QR codes. However, not everyone can use QR codes. And that is not exclusive to only the low or no vision people out there. It also includes motor impairments. So if I'm trying to hold up my phone and press the link, that might be very difficult for some of our users. So I imagine as passkey matures in the market, we'll have additional enhancements in order to make passkeys accessible. I will say, though, I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've been able to do, both on the UX working group and the FIDO Alliance as a whole. Accessibility has really been a foundation for passkey, and I think that is really important on how to move forward. Personally, I would say that this has been very rewarding being involved in this. It's made us, at least at Sony, make some changes to our implementation in order to accommodate more users, and I hope that these UX guidelines inspire you to do the same. So if there's any takeaway, I would say a baseline is WCAG is awesome for accessibility guidelines, as well as screen readers are really great, so make sure all of your experiences support screen readers.
Awesome. Anyone else have thoughts on this?
Sure. I guess my point of view is more internal to working at Intuit. So Intuit really values accessibility. It's one of our core values, and we have an internal accessibility team. They do a lot of trainings and certifications, so internally employees can become accessibility champions. The reason for that is not one person is responsible for accessibility. It has to be a part of your product implementation culture almost. And to do that, we also have to build empathy for people who need more from what I would say a traditional implementation, right? So for that, we are also doing things like having monthly speakers who come in and talk about their accessibility needs that are really bringing empathy to the table so we can do better with how we use accessibility needs and show that in our products. We also try to work with partners who prioritize accessibility. A lot of times with user experience, you build accessibility, but when it shows up on whichever screen or system you use, it doesn't really come across as accessible. So we are trying to prioritize that and being really diligent about how do our experiences show up for our customers, and really can we do better there.
Nice. And I like how you're kind of systematizing the commitment to accessibility through this entire program. That's something that Cisco does as well. Accessibility programs, making sure everyone has a chance to either participate or learn from others and have that space kind of carved out for accessibility so it gets the attention that it really deserves. Any other thoughts from our panel about accessibility? Nope, I think we're ready for the next topic.
We're going to go ahead and sign in.
All right. So here,
like I thought it might. It's going to ask for my username at least. Now, I didn't necessarily expect this drop down right away, but it's helpful context to show me that that's the account that it recognizes from having been used previously in this browser for this site, and it has a little notation about using screen lock, so I know what to expect there. And then exactly as I expected, it popped up just like it did when I was setting this up the first time to use that screen lock and sign me in.
All right. Autofill. You might not know what autofill is. I'm going to put Christian on the spot. Christian, what is autofill? Why or why not use it?
I think I should have done a little bit more research on this one, but I'll start to think. No, so Autofill has an interesting history, right? Because Autofill predates password managers. I don't know if it was about 10 years ago or at some point, like the browser decided they wanted to be more helpful. There's lots of things we enter into web pages every day, right? One of them is usernames, passwords, credit card data, first names, last names, address details. So at some point, the browser decided that it wanted to be more helpful, and it started offering suggestions, right? And we roughly call these suggestions on the web, we call them autofill, and at some point, autofill was kind of superseded by the password manager. So password managers obviously store more kind of like secure credentials. Even if you turn off your password manager in Chrome today, autofill will still try to helpfully intervene whenever information like a username needs to be entered. So even if you turn off the password manager, there will still be suggestions, right? And you click into a username field about things that we think you should be using at that point in time or that might be helpful to you. So almost every single user, I think today, in any web context, will be familiar with the autofill that pops up at some point. It's interesting because some users always just ignore autofill completely and think it's like unhelpful. So they're like, well, I don't even want to, grab or click there. Especially we find users that's more I guess, familiar with shared workstations, right? Where the autofill might not be something that would be applicable to you. Users with personal workstations on mobile phones, they're more prone to clicking, looking through the autofill, clicking the particular icon that they want to use, and then, going through. So a little bit of a brief history on autofill. We decided about 2 years ago that autofill was probably the right answer to the problem, which we got, the question that a lot of RPs asked us, right? And the question was, when a user makes a FIDO credential or a passkey, that's all great. But when this user returns to my website or my app, how do I know to give them the passkey experience versus the password experience, right? We don't want to give the user a passkey experience on a device where they don't have a passkey or where they can't possibly succeed. That's just a bad look. However, we also don't want to prompt the user for a password if they happen to have a passkey. So the question we got from the industry, I guess, was, can you give us an API? Can you make it easy for us to tell whether or not a user has a passkey? Now, for privacy reasons, we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to reveal to a website, without any user interaction, that a passkey for that website is available here. We can get into the details for why that's not a good idea, but we decided not to do that. And for a long, while we were kind of like a little bit blocked on how to solve this problem, that dawned on us. We had the solution in our back pocket all along in the, ways of autofill. So today, if you decorate your username or your password field accordingly, the system will automatically, and the system here would be Chrome or Safari, or, if you're using a mobile app, in the mobile app context, it'll happen there too. When your user clicks into the field, the system will gather up all the autofill username, suggestions it has, but it will also dip into the local passkey store and figure out which passkeys are available for this property and automatically list them out to the user so they can easily click on them. If you don't follow this example, there's only two other things you could do, right? I think using autofill is by far the best mechanism and the best approach to solving the passkey availability problem. There's two other things you can do if you don't want to go that route. The one other thing is you can do heuristics, right? And that's what Google's deployment does. And by the way, I'll do the plug at this point, g.co/passkey. Please set up your passkey on your Google account, and you can experience all of this. So Google's approach to this is we do heuristics right now. So you first type your username. We don't integrate with Autofill yet. You type your username. Then we try and do heuristics to figure out whether we think you have a passkey. We've got pretty good heuristics, so most of the time we're correct. Not all of the time. We do want to move to a world where we want to use Autofill in the future. However, we're not quite there yet. There's a little bit of infrastructural things we need to solve first. So using heuristics, a lot of work to use heuristics, but that's an option. Or the other option is put a button on your page which says type your password here or click here for passkeys. We find that putting a button on your page confuses a lot of users who don't know what passkeys are because they just end up clicking it and going down a dead end. So kind of like backing up a little bit again, Autofill, by far the best choice. If you're able to use it in your infrastructure, decorate your username field accordingly, and automatically any available passkey would be shown to the user for an easy click. And as we saw on this demo here, even a user knowing nothing about passkeys, when they saw it there, they were kind of a little bit surprised, but clicking into it immediately had the result that they were looking for.
Straight from the horse's mouth here. I don't know how we can expand upon that, but would you care to say anything else about autofill? Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, I feel like with passkeys, the number one driver for users to do this is ease of use. As much as I feel like we want users to care about security, they typically don't until it's too late. And autofill really makes that as easy as possible. There was a panel earlier in Identiverse that said we want to make the best and most secure option the easiest, and I think autofill is truly what empowers passkeys to do that.
Thanks, Cam. Any other thoughts on autofill?
As a user, I want it, but I don't need to know everything about how it works. So, just prioritizing that is important.
Yeah. And I think we saw that in the video clip. Somebody was experiencing autofill. That's what you saw in the video clip. They haven't used a passkey before. That was the first time they used a passkey, but he got through that no problem. He appreciated that ultimately. That was the first time ever signing in with the passkey. Let's move on to the next one.
I wouldn't mind. I don't mind a passkey usually. I don't mind it because it's convenient. It's a scan or a finger. It's more convenient than typing in numbers or letters and all that kind of stuff for your password, especially if you forget it. But I still want the option.
Don't force people into a specific way. Give them options, a way of logging in. Give them options and let them do whatever that they're comfortable in doing. And everybody's pace of adopting new technology is different based off of personal experiences, and that's okay. I don't see why it needs to be one way or another, but options are always a good thing. Lots of options.
Give the consumers options. Don't just make the choice for them, because then it actually makes consumers feel like they have control over what they're sharing. Ultimately, you want to ensure customers feel safe putting their information there, but you also want them to feel like they're in control.
Authentication options. Niharika, consumers want options for authentication. Should passkeys be one of many options?
Yes. I feel like, customers, especially Intuit customers, they are such creatures of habit. They want to do what is easy, always. They'll always use the password that's saved on their browser because it's there, it's saved, Why go for a new factor? So we recognize that customers are looking for simplicity, and we want to provide that, but we also want to provide passkeys as an option because it's beneficial in the future. So while we are thinking about how do we adopt passkeys if it's a good fit for our customers, we're trying to do a lot of research around what is our customer flow end-to-end, where are customers getting stuck, what happens if they lose their phone, do they understand how passkeys work if that happens, and are we deprioritizing existing high-quality options in the favor of passkeys, considering that customers don't still understand what are the big benefits for passkeys. So for our company and for our customers, our approach is going to be having the best first-time experience. We really want to take away the doubt, the uncertainty of, what is this passkey? How does it benefit me as a customer? what happens to my fallback options? So we are working through those things. We are also thinking about timing of the passkeys. So one of the examples that Kevin and Sierre used is account recovery, and can we position passkeys right after a password reset? It's really smart to do that, because that's where you'll get more engagement from customers who absolutely hate passwords, still rely on them, but that's where we want to hook the customer and say enroll in passkeys. It will carry through everywhere. You'd never have to reset it again. So we are thinking about research, we're thinking about fit, the right time to introduce these things. But for now, yes, customers need to see options. They don't want to be locked in to be using passkeys when they don't know what they are yet.
Got it. So embracing a multitude of options. Anyone else have to add?
Maybe just briefly. So I think I totally agree. I add one thing, right? In the future, we are hoping that passkeys be that one ring to rule them all kind of thing, right? I don't want to keep offering SMS and passwords and push notifications and all sorts of other rubbish. I want to get away from it. However, we cannot do that today. When we tested our messaging with users early on, one of the things that we tested was, hey, your passkey replace your password. And we had a lot of pushback from users on that. They know how passwords work. They know where they don't work. They understand the trade-offs associated with passkeys. They don't quite understand the trade-offs associated with with passwords. They don't understand the trade-offs associated with passkeys quite yet. So the challenge here is surprising users. And again, I said that in my the talk this morning as well. The thing users are mostly worried about is not account security. It's getting locked out. That is the number one thing that, at least from a Google account perspective, that keeps our users up at night. They've got so much content and so much things, so much data, in a Google account, that they just don't want to lose. So if you give them another option, great. It's simpler. It's fine, right? If you take something away, they think twice, and I think that is going to be a challenge for us over time, getting users more comfortable with the technology where they're okay to trade in their old password for a passkey. We're not quite there yet. So I totally agree. Yeah, options today, but hopefully not tomorrow.
Just a few minutes.
Looks like we got just a few minutes, so we're going to move on to our last topic.
If you had the ear of people who are building this kind of technology, what would you want to leave them with? What kind of final thoughts do you have?
They're doing a nice job. I think it's nice. And where I wasn't comfortable in the beginning, where they keep introducing it, or they keep making it easy, they keep it familiar to similar to what I'm already familiar with, then it makes me feel even more comfortable and more like I want to try it. So it's just like with kids and new foods, you just keep offering, and even if they reject it, eventually they will accept it, or they will acquire the taste for it. And I think that's happening here. They've got the options in all the places that I would need to look for getting in.
So we have just a few minutes left, but let's end on this one. Change. And we might have time for one or two comments. How will the UX for passkeys change over time? Kind of talked about this already, but welcome anybody on the panel.
With passkeys, there are a lot of unknown unknowns that unfortunately I don't think we're going to really uncover until it matures in the market. I always joke internally that passkey does not pass the mom test. Despite my best efforts, my mother has no idea what a passkey is. And so once the user education level rises, as well as a familiarity, Google is a great example. That's going to really help pave the way for others to launch passkeys. We can really streamline passkey processes and do less user education. So that's one, but there are really many, many more that we're yet to see.
Any last thoughts? We got about a minute or two.
Yeah, so there's the promise of passkeys being like this all-encompassing factor, right? Works everywhere. You have one passkey, unlocks everything. But it's not exactly how it works right now. Depending on which product you use and which device and platform you're using, your passkey experience is going to change. And I think as an industry, we have to capture that one experience. It's so new, right? You don't want customers to get lost in it and say, okay, company A does passkeys like this, company B does it A different way, I don't really know what Passkeys is now, because as a concept, it breaks somewhere along the way. So we want to be consistent with that effort of how we show Passkeys, how they're getting adopted across all of our products.
Christian?
Twisting my arm. All right, I'll speak. I think there's three things. I'll start with industry, right? I think over time, I'm hoping that passkey experiences will start to converge, and this is how we do passkeys. Like username and a password field. You can show those two text boxes, and everyone knows what it means. Something like that with passkeys. We're going to have to see where exactly we end up, but that's the first thing. The second thing I'll quickly talk about is platform, right? I am hoping that the handoff between the website, the service, and the platform will become easier and less janky, right? Today, there are some cases where the user is interacting with Google, and suddenly, like, something on Windows pops up, and then they're back in Google, and something in Chrome intervenes. I'm hoping that that'll get smoothed out, and that'll take a little bit of time, right? We need, it's a three-party system. It's browsers, it's RPs, it's platforms. All of those things need to kind of, like, work together. I think it's smooth enough for initial adoption, but over the next year or two, I'm hoping that that will start to kind of, like, get sanded down a little bit. And the last thing I'll say is, because that's going to happen, I think we can start on our side from the Google perspective, we can start offering passkeys as an opt-in and rather just start offering it as a default, right? Today, again, if you go to g.co/passkey or passkeys, you can sign up for passkeys on your Google account. And again, nothing will get lost. You'll just gain the ability to use passkeys. We're not offering passkeys for everyone yet. We still think it's something that users should opt into and decide they want to start using passkeys. That's not how it's going to be forever, right? Some point in time, we're going to make the decision that this is ready for mainstream mass market adoption, and then everyone will just start getting passkey prompts on their device. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're very close.
So helpful, panel. Thank you for joining the panel. Thank you for attending. I'll show the QR code as we leave here again. Also, the dates here for the webinar series, please sign up, June 13th, 20th, and 27th. We'll do a bunch in Q&A on the first webinar on the 13th. Thank you all for attending.